This is the Harley-Davidson Heritage Classic, and in this video we're going to give it a full review. We have actually reviewed this bike in the past, but the reason we're reviewing it again is because next week we've got the BMW R18 Classic, the new version, coming in, and we wanted to get a video, an up-to-date review of this bike because they're very comparable. So the reason we're doing it is one, for that, and two, because we're going to cover some things in this review that we didn't cover in our first review.
Now, Harley-Davidson themselves described the Heritage Classic as a quintessential American cruiser with show-stopping vintage details and pure rock and roll style. And now I think that's a very true statement. This bike is, to me, what the essence of Harley-Davidson is. This is the sort of bike that Harley-Davidson are known for producing. And I think this bike is actually one of the best looking bikes in the Softail lineup, minus the screen and the bags. Once you take them off, which we're going to do in a second, this bike looks absolutely incredible.
Now, this is actually my personal motorcycle. It's a 2018 model, but there's very little difference between this and the new model, apart from some colour schemes. But also, this has 161 Newton meters of torque, which peaks at 3,000 RPM, and the new model is a little bit lower, at 155 Newton meters at 3,250 RPM. So, as I said, the new model's a little down on the torque, and that's probably due to get it through some of the regulations and what have you. So that can be mapped out if you wanted to change that and get one of the sort of plug-in maps, and you can change all that if you want to.
Now, before we carry on with the video, make sure you like and subscribe. It really helps the channel out, and you don't want to miss next week's videos. We've got the brand new BMW R18 Classic coming, and we're also going to do a separate video comparing the Harley-Davidson Heritage Classic with the R18 Classic, so you don't want to miss it. So we normally record our videos using a Sony A7 III, but unfortunately the microphone port has broken for some reason, so we've had to use our other camera, our backup camera, which is a Canon 750D. So if you do notice a slight drop in quality, that's the reason why. It only films in 25 frames per second as opposed to 60, so you might notice a little bit of a difference.
Now, the Harley-Davidson Heritage Classic produces 93 horsepower at 5,020 RPM. And that may not sound like a lot, because lots of sort of mid-sized motorbikes produce that amount of power, but it's all about the torque. And this has so much torque, it's monstrous. And it comes in at very low RPM, so from 2,000 to 3,000. That's kind of the RPM range you ride the bike in most of the time, and the torque is just so stump-rippingly amazing. We literally have the bikes kept in a sort of an old barn, and we have to go down some steps and put a ramp up. Put lots of bikes in there, and they all come out no problem. When I ride this one out, it literally rips the step to pieces. So we've got to repair that now because the torque is just huge. The great thing about a talky motorcycle when you're riding is it's so effortless to ride, and you just open it up, you don't have to keep changing gear, you go up a hill and it will just pull up. Overtaking is just a twist of the wrist and you're gone. It's fantastic. So it really is a nice, easy bike to ride. But the torque is so tremendous, it's hard to imagine. If you compare this to the most torquey motorcycle in the world, the Rocket 3 from Triumph, this feels more torquey. It genuinely does, because it comes in so early, and there's no traction control and no modes and all that sort of stuff, so you get everything all the time. Now, one of the things that's really good about the Heritage Classic is that it's a big motorcycle. So for taller people, I'm 6'3", you've got tons of space, there's lots of room for your legs, you've got the forward controls, your hands reach forward nicely, there's plenty of room on the bike. So anyone from 5'10" to say 6'6", you'd be all right on this bike. You can of course bring the handlebars towards you a little bit more if you're a bit shorter, but it's a roomy bike, perhaps not quite as roomy as the Indian Springfield, but certainly in that league.
Now the seat height on this bike is 680 millimeters, and if you're someone below 5'10", you might think that's quite appealing because it's quite a low seat height. But this bike's very long. It's got a long wheelbase, so if you are a little bit short, below 5'10", that's short to us, you might struggle to reach the bars, and you might find the controls a little bit far away, as it's got forward controls. But you can bring the bars back, as the old man said, but it's pretty good for someone of my height. I'm about 6'1", and this feels perfect.
Now the wheelbase on this is 1,630 millimeters. The rake is 30 degrees and the trailer is 140 millimeters. And those dimensions, combined with the 16-inch wheels, the 16-inch rims, give you a very good ride. It's a very good handling bike, and I've said it before, but I still think this is the best handling of all the Harley-Davidsons. It takes the corners very nicely, and it's very stable. It's very stable in a straight line. And it takes the bumps very well. The suspension is very good, and the suspension under the seat is adjustable, so you can adjust it for a passenger or for your weight. So it's a fabulous ride, it really is. And I prefer bikes with a shallower rake, if you like, 30 degrees. The BMW R18 is 32.7, and I like the feel of that sort of thing. It gives you a very stable, very secure ride, and it's very confidence inspiring.
Now the weight of the Heritage Classic is 330 kilograms. That's a wet weight, so with your fuel and your lubricants in it. And that's very heavy. And you do notice how heavy it is, especially when you're manoeuvring the bike. If you're putting it backwards, it's extremely difficult, especially if you're on a little bit of a slope. You've got to have the strength of a rhinoceros to be able to move this thing.
Now, we often get asked what gear we would recommend. I'm wearing a gold top Rebel 619 leather jacket, which is absolutely fantastic. The quality is amazing. The leather is thick but supple and soft. So, and the gloves as well. They've got a whole range of beautiful gloves, beautifully lined, what have you. These are the Cafe Racer gloves. They're fantastic. So that's what we would recommend.
The fuel tank is 18.9 litres on this bike. That's a pretty reasonable size, and you'll get official figures 43 miles per gallon out of this bike. You're probably more looking at about 40, but you'll never be able to know because there's no miles per gallon dial on here. It doesn't tell you, so you've got to guess. But that's reasonable. I mean, it's the same as an average hatchback car. So if you think of how much performance and joy you get out of it, it doesn't really matter.
Now the braking on this bike, you've got a single disc at the front and a single at the rear. It's not brilliant, to be honest. It's not the best brakes in the world. You've got a lot of engine braking with all that torque. I've said in the past that they were good brakes, but that's relative, because when you get on other bikes like I have, some bikes' brakes are incredible. So yeah, they're okay, they're not the best in the world, but they certainly stop you.
Now on the old Heritage, the old style, you used to have a fuel filler on each side. But now you've got a dummy one on the left. It would have been nice if maybe they put a little dial in there, maybe even a fuel dial would be quite nice, or a temperature or something would look quite nice, I think. But it fits in, it makes it look symmetrical, so it's not the end of the world.
Now you've got a 6-speed gearbox on the Harley. They're very clunky gears on Harleys, but that's just what they're all like. The clutch is quite firm, but a decent feel to it. And it's got a fly-by-wire throttle. And there's no maps on this, like I've said. We're not very keen on maps anyway, so you get everything all the time. But you can get that tuned with a ECU, and you can have it all changed and remapped the way you want it. But once it's set, it's set.
Now, if it's raining, you have to put this little cover over the air filter, otherwise it just sucks in all the water. Someone said on one of our old Heritage videos that their one wasn't going over, but you can buy a new one of these for less than a £5, I think. They're not expensive, so it's not really a big deal.
as standard, the Harley-Davidsons don't sound all that loud, and the whole point of having a V-twin is to get that sound. So as we have done, lots of people fit an aftermarket slip-on or a whole pipe system. We've got Eliminator 300s from Vance & Hires on this one.
Now, as a passenger on this bike, this back seat can, if you're going under hard acceleration, can be a little bit slippy. So you have to definitely grip the person in front of you as much as you can. Obviously, if you bought one of the touring bikes or something, you could get a sissy bar for it.
Now, riding it with a passenger on the back, because it's so torquey and it's so heavy, you don't really notice the passenger. So from my point of view as a rider, it's pretty good in that respect.
Now, before we carry on with the rest of the video, we'd really appreciate if you subscribe, leave us a like on the video and comment below what you think of this bike and what you're excited to see next.
Now, the controls are nice and simple on this, which I like. Your lights, your indicator for the left, and the right is on the other side, and cruise control. One thing about having indicators either side is that it's harder to indicate with your throttle hand if you're riding, so lots of bikes have it on the left and you toggle one way or the other, and that, to be honest, is probably better. On the right handlebar, you've got your on-off switch and your starter button and your hazard warning and your right indicator. I've put a little red sticker on the off switch because in an emergency it's nice to know which one to hit if you need to.
So the good thing about the Heritage Classic is that you can completely change the look of it by taking the screen off, taking the bags off, or maybe you could take the bags off, have the screen on, take the screen off, have the bags on. You can also take off the back seat very easily, but to take off the rear panniers, all you have to do is undo these two bolts in here, which we'll do in a second, and we'll show you what it looks like without those on there, and you really see that this bike looks incredible. Now, once you've undone the bolts, you just pull it off the little rubber mount and it comes off nice and easily. Now, as you can see, this bike looks completely different when you've taken the screen off and the panniers. I think it looks a lot better, especially once you take the back seat off as well if you're not riding with a pillion. But let us know what you think. Would you prefer it with the screen and the panniers or without? And also these little holes here where you've taken the bolts out, you can get these bolts that just go in to make it look flush, but we haven't put them in yet. We have got some.
Now, the mirrors on this are very good. Because the bars are so wide, you've got the sort of ape hangers on this. They're nice and high and out of the way, so I can see most of the road behind me, which is really good. Now, this has got the very classic sort of 1950s styling, very gangster era styling on this. And the mudguards are big, and you might not like the style, but they work, you see. With all the wet roads and what have you, most of it gets caught up in the mudguards. The rear bit's got the sort of trim on it, which has come off because it's only plastic, and these little peg things that go in, I mean, they snap so easily. So I wish that was metal. That would make it a lot better. Now, the detachable screen is very nice. It's nice to have it. It doesn't look as cool on, of course, but when it's on, it does keep the wind off you nicely. At high speed, you get a bit of wind underneath and on the top of your head. But it depends, of course, how tall you are. Me being 6'3", I do feel it on the top of my head a lot. But it's nice to have the screen on most of the time, to be honest. Now, the standard tyres on this are the Dunlop D401F tyres. They're okay in the dry, they're not bad at all. In the wet, they're pretty poor, actually. If you're opening this bike up, you can get it to wheel spin in third and fourth gear with all that torque. So it doesn't sort of perform very well in the wet, wintry sort of English roads.
Now, The current price of the 2020, the new model, or 2021, is $20,995 in black like this. You've also got $21,345 in colour. And then if you want to go two tones, you've got two separate colours. You're looking at $21,745.
Now, don't forget to check out our Teespring store with all our t-shirts. We've got some great designs. This is one of them. They're on the carousel below, so it would really help us out if you could have a look and purchase one of our cool t-shirts.
We've got t-shirts, hoodies, all different colours and styles. There's new designs every week, so make sure you have a look. Thanks very much for watching the video. Make sure you like and subscribe, leave your comments below.